Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. So, this episode is actually our first one since Amy's back from her trip. If you're following along on Instagram, which is so exciting, she truly went everywhere. And so, in this episode, we're kind of going to dedicate it in a little bit of an interview style into how, the experiences she had, how she encountered God on her trip, and a lot more. So, really excited to hear more about that.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about my adventure with you guys. God grew me a lot, so yeah, I'm excited to share it.
Yes. So, essentially, just as a little reminder, do you want to give us a quick little recap of places you went?
Yes. So I started off, so I left from Vancouver, obviously, and then I landed in Prague. I had like 2 layovers before that. I was traveling for I didn't sleep. I think I had no sleep for like 65 hours in the first chunk of my traveling.
No.
So it was
No.
pretty exhausting because right when I landed into Prague, my best friend Kaylee picked me up because her and her husband were living there at the time because he's playing volleyball. And they picked me up, and for some reason, me and my friend Kaylee decided to book a flight to Paris on the day that I landed. So I literally had no sleep. And it was pretty exhausting, but it was amazing. So I went to, Czech Republic, France, Italy, Hungary, Spain, and Morocco. And then obviously a whole bunch of cities in between that.
Yes. Wow. That's absolutely incredible. Your trip is not for the weak. It's a lot of lack of sleep on your way there. Yeah.
Especially when you are like doing it in I guess a cheaper way to try and save money. It's
right.
Yeah, not for the weak.
So I guess let's just go right into it. What led you to want to do this solo trip to Europe? What inspired that?
Yeah. So obviously you all know, just because, we haven't said it enough, that we went to Bible school in Greece.
Yes.
Because we probably mentioned it every single episode.
Once or twice, right?
But I just knew that I wanted to explore Europe more ever since that trip. So I knew that eventually I was going to do another trip. I didn't know particularly that it was going to be this year, but it's kind of perfect because, like I said, my friend was there, so we planned a bit of the trip together. And then I have family in Hungary and Spain, so I was like, wow, this is the perfect time for me to go and visit them. So I kind of took it as a huge opportunity. And yeah, it was a unique chance to go and visit people and see things, see where my parents grew up. It was pretty unbelievable.
Very cool. Yeah, once in a lifetime, hey?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you feel like that was something that God was inviting you into?
Yeah, and that's a question that I feel like I've really had to sit with. Because I do believe that God knows the desires of our hearts. We all know that. And He's faithful to meet us in those desires, which is so important to know and understand. But I also think that, every desire that we carry isn't always from Him necessarily, and that's an important thing to discern. So me wanting to travel, just because I want to travel and see the world, I have to make sure I'm wanting to do that in the right ways, not necessarily just in a worldly way or because everyone else is doing it,
Yeah, in a way where it's that God really placed that desire there. He gave you that desire instead of just oh, this is something that I just want to do because I want to go and have fun and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've wrestled a lot with the idea that maybe this wasn't a door that God specifically opened for me, but even in that uncertainty, He still showed up on my trip. He still showed up in every single corner, every single place I was in or visited. He was still there. And so I think it's important to mention that even if you're unsure or even if you don't know if a decision is the perfect one, God is still going to meet you there. And I've had to remind myself that a lot because, Zara, that I struggle with making decisions and being, fully committed to one thing. It's hard for me because I overthink and I want to, know every outcome first. But I feel like I'm learning right now that the truth is when you're, struggling with something like that, you have to remember that God is faithful. And if your heart is surrendered to Him, He'll guide you and redirect you if needed. Like He'll close doors, open doors, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
He'll walk with you the whole way. And so on my trip, I may not have been totally sure at the start, but God absolutely used it. He grew me, He stretched me, He reminded me that I can be brave, not because of me, but because He's with me. And I think that's so important to mention because, yeah, I didn't know. I was like, yeah, I have this desire. I wasn't 100% sure if it was from the Lord, but even if I wasn't sure, I took that step and I got to see the world and He used me through it. So,
Yeah. And leading up to this, like, it's, you were very like dedicated to, growing your faith and all of this stuff. Like you were very much, like, I guess, I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, but kind of like in communion with the Lord, right? Like you weren't just, kind of sporadically doing this and, hope just being like, oh, God's going to meet me there. Like you were very much like with Him and wanting to submit it to Him. And I think that's really cool and helped you a lot, right? Because it's like, that's a
yeah.
big undertaking to go and see the world on your own.
Yeah, definitely. It was scary at first, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess so on that, did you feel any like fear or hesitation before going? And then how did you kind of deal with that in your relationship with God?
Yeah, I think definitely I had a lot of fear and hesitation before going because, like I said just now, I questioned if I was making the right choice. And I struggle with that a lot in my life if I'm making the right choice because I don't want to necessarily disappoint the Lord, even though I know He's not going to be disappointed in our decisions because I
Oh,
know that
yeah.
He equips us for anything. But that's something I struggle with. And so I had hesitations. I didn't want to be lonely. I had, what if something goes wrong? If my family and I wouldn't get along, things like that. And so I had so many of those what ifs in my head. And a big part of me was scared to step into the unknown without knowing exactly how it would turn out. And I think what really helped me was just being honest with God. Like, genuinely,
Mm,
I didn't try to fake confidence or pretend like I had it all together. It was like, okay, I'm going to bring these fears to you. I'm going to pray and say, God, I don't know if this is the right choice, but I'm trusting you. And I pray that you'll still use me on this trip. Like, make me bold, help me be fearless, help me introduce people
yeah.
to who you are. And because that God can do that. Like, I'm traveling across the world and like I was praying that like I would encounter people and hopefully be able to mention, His name in the conversations. And so, journaling about that, I cried a lot before I left, but I kept laying it down over and over again.
Aw.
And yeah, and I think like the peace didn't always come all at once. It was like little by little, so it wasn't like I
Wow.
prayed and then right away I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." But yeah, I
That's
started to
really
like,
cool. Sorry,
yeah,
didn't mean to
no,
interrupt
that's
you, but
okay.
that's a really cool thing that you just said, like that the peace came little by little, not all at once. Because how often do we like pray for peace and we're like, oh no, like I don't feel it all in 5 minutes afterwards. And then we
Yeah.
kind of, be like, oh no, like I guess God's not going to answer that prayer. But then it does come little by little. I think that's really cool. But sorry, continue on.
Yeah. No, 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 that's okay. But it's true. Like, and I still struggle with that. Like, I'll pray and I'll be like, oh, like I feel like He's not going to answer that prayer. But it's like, okay, He's not going to magically answer it maybe in this moment, but like little by little, He's going to, answer the desires of your heart. And so, yeah, I might not know the full picture, but I think He already sees, we know that He already sees the beginning and the end. And so He kind of reminded me that bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to trust Him even in the midst of it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I think I was able to really step into the unknown and, it gave me courage to go. And it wasn't because I had no fear, but it was because I knew I wouldn't be alone. And so even on the days where I was traveling to, cities by myself on the train, which I usually would be so fearful of, the Lord almost took my fear away. Like I had so much bravery that I never had before. And He proved that to me like again and again on the trip that it was like, you're not alone. I'm with you. So even if you feel lonely, you can talk to me because I'm literally beside you. And so that was super cool because I could feel that my whole trip. It was like, I'm right beside you. And yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's so beautiful. Sounds like He really kind of redefined what that means in your life, hey?
Yeah, definitely. Cause like
Totally.
before I feel like before my trip, I was fearful about everything. Like, and I feel like even coming back, I've been like, obviously I still struggle with it, but it's been a lot less of like, I'm scared to do this. It's been more of like, okay, but God's with me. So he showed that to me. So I can use that to keep going. And so, yeah, it's been really awesome.
Yeah, sounds like you really encountered him in a lot of new ways.
Yeah.
How did, and if you like whatever other ways, how did traveling alone make you more aware of God's presence?
Yeah. I feel like it made me aware of his presence in, so many ways because many parts of the day I was alone, in my thoughts. And like I said, I always knew he was with me. And so when I was in Spain, particularly, God and I always had conversations on the beach. So I was really lucky because it wasn't tourist season. So I had the beach a lot to myself. And I would sit on the beach and I literally would talk out loud to God. Like we'd be having a conversation. I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling this way. I miss my parents. I miss my siblings. God, I'm struggling with this. Like, I feel like no one around me believes in God. Like I was visiting family and my family out there isn't Christians. So it wasn't like I felt like they were still loving, kind, and amazing people, but I couldn't relate to
Yeah.
them on that level. So I struggled. I was like, I just feel like I have no one to talk to about, you. And God really reminded me that like he again was with me. And it's kind of crazy because I never felt like I was talking to myself. It was like I knew he was there and listening to me. And he even answered me in the
Uh-huh.
clouds, and I know this may sound silly to some people, but I'm, like, talking to him, and I'm looking at the clouds, and, like, I see, like, angels in the shape of clouds, like, I saw crosses, I could see, like, Jesus, picking me up with his hand, like, while I'm talking to him, and I'm like, "Wow," like, I just knew it was from him, like, when you see something and you're like, "Wow, that was
Wow.
God." And it was just, like,
Yeah.
so amazing because he just answered so many prayers in that moment. Like, I was struggling, I felt lonely, and he was just like, "Look, I'm right here, like, I'm listening to you, like, this is proof that I'm listening to you." And it wasn't like I asked him for a sign, I wasn't like, "God, show me that you're listening." It was like, "I can hear you," like, I'm sitting beside you, and yeah, it was a surreal experience.
What a good father we have.
Right? Like,
Like what a
he's
great
really
father.
amazing.
But you didn't
Yeah.
even like you weren't like, God, like show me something, like give me a sign that you're here. You just were like being honest. You were being vulnerable with your heavenly father and he just saw that and he answered you. And I think that's incredibly beautiful. And also the
Yeah.
fact that you didn't just like you didn't go there and experience this loneliness and then you're like, "Oh no, like I made this bad decision. I'm just going to, sulk or something and feel bad about this." You immediately went to God and you made that a continual habit. And that's how you got that freedom from some of those moments. That's how you got that reassurance. That's how you were able to, move
Yeah.
along in your trip and that's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just obsessed with him. Like I just love him so much. Like like it's just crazy because if you think about it, like he just showed me so many times on my trip that he's my father. Like just reminding me over and over again that he's protecting me and that he's with me. And he does that for all of us. Like how incredible is that? Like I
Yeah,
just think about that. I'm like, he literally cares about every single one of us. And there's like 8 billion people on the planet. It's like, I don't know, it's just crazy to think about. But yeah,
totally.
I was reminded by a lot of that.
Yeah. All right. Now, another question, a little bit of a different route. I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what was it like meeting family that you had never known before? And I know you mentioned a lot of them didn't know Jesus. Were there any
Mhm.
surprising conversations or connections that you were able to make?
Yeah, so it was pretty surreal meeting family that I haven't known before. Some of them I have met when I was little, so they were familiar faces, but others, it was my first time meeting, talking to them. So it was, interesting. It was amazing though. Like I didn't grow up with these relatives, didn't hear their voices, see their faces, but somehow there was still like this unspoken connection and it felt like home in the most like unexpected places, which yeah, it just almost felt so like it was from the Lord, like he didn't want me to feel like lost or lonely. And it was like I was meeting this family for the first time and he showed up, even though it wasn't like a house, I wasn't visiting a household that was Christian and, they didn't believe in Jesus, but I still felt him in their home, and I don't even know how to
Wow.
explain that. And yeah, so some of the most like meaningful moments, they weren't like, I don't know, big or dramatic, I guess you could say, but they were like, the times where I was like sitting in the morning and having coffee with my great uncle in Hungary, and we're just, talking, and his English is a bit broken, but like, I'm following along to what he's saying. And it was just like those peaceful moments. Or like when I was in Baya, Hungary, and this guy, I'm in like this market and I have a huge family. I didn't realize how big it was, but like every second market was like a cousin of mine, like a distant cousin. And this man comes up to me and he goes, "You look so much like your mom." And or no, he said, sorry, that's not what he said. He came up to me and said, "Are you Krista's daughter?" Which is my mom's name. And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow, you look so much like your mom." And I was just like, oh my goodness, like this random guy comes up and
Wow.
recognizes me. I was just like, this is so weird. Like, because Baya is a very small town. And so not a lot of people, like tourists, would never go there. So when they see someone that they're like, "Oh, who's this girl here?" People are like, "Who is she?" And then he came up to me and I was just like, wow. Like, and I don't think I look anything like my mom. So when I told my family, they were all like, "Definitely not. You look like your dad." But it's kind of funny how like other people see different things. And it was just a crazy thing for someone to just come up to you in a foreign, or like, a different country. And anyways, that was a really amazing experience. But moving on from that, it was also just amazing to hear like stories about my grandpa leading, 1,000 men in the army. And just, I learned so much and things I never know if I didn't come there. And I think, people who didn't know me at all, they were opening their arms and hearts like they'd know me forever. And so that was God. That's where I saw God in like these families, and my family, and these households that don't necessarily believe in him. And, I saw him in
Hmm.
everything, in the way I was cared for, and just everything, even the language barriers. Like my dad's sister doesn't speak English, and we were able to talk about, so she has a little bit of faith, and we were able to talk about God on Google Translate, which is like so cool. And just like things like that, he showed up. And yeah, it just moved me so much. And I actually started writing a book about my family history, on side note. So it's just been amazing. And I've just felt so inspired to keep learning about my family history. And even though not all of them believe in God, I could see that he's writing their stories too, which is like so beautiful. And there
Hmm.
was one lady that I met in Hungary. She's blind, and I think she's my dad's niece. And she was like the only one that I met that was actually like religious. And she also doesn't speak English, but we were using Google Translate, and she was sharing, her testimony and how I asked her, I'm like, "How do you like, you believe in God but you're blind, and like how do you cope with that? Like how have you kept your faith?" And she told me that like he literally has walked her through life. Like she lost her mom, she lives alone in a house, she's blind, she has to do everything on her own, and she just shared her testimony with me. And I was like, wow, like I didn't even know this girl was in my family. And like now we can both bond over, Jesus. And now we have each other on Facebook and we get to talk. But it's just like so amazing how I just saw him in so many different areas where I kind of expected to visit a family who, yeah, knew nothing about God. I guess if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm rambling. But anyways, God just
No,
showed
this
me
is really
a lot of
interesting.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What a amazing opportunity, and what a legacy
Yeah.
too, that most
Yeah.
people
It
will
was
never
pretty
know
cool.
about their families. Exactly like what you were saying. All those things you would never have known if you hadn't gone there, right?
Yeah.
That's just incredibly beautiful. Aw. And then they're going to remember you. Like, obviously, you made a massive impact on them, right? So it's like, oh, here's this Christian girl from Canada. Like,
I
you know, that's really cool.
hope so. Yeah.
Definitely. Was there ever a moment? I know you said that there are some ups and downs. Was there ever a moment that you felt completely lost or overwhelmed, whether that's, physically or emotionally, and God really met you there and gave you strength and direction?
Yeah. So actually, I was in Hungary for Easter. And I've actually haven't, like, I've gone to an Easter service, like, for 5 years. Like I always go to church every Sunday, and especially of course I go on Easter. And so this was the first year in a long time I didn't have a church to go to on Easter. And I remember I was feeling homesick. I kind of wished my family was there, especially my parents, and that they were seeing it all with me. But then on Easter Sunday, my uncle and aunt were like, "Hey, Amy, like, do you want to do a little hike today?" And I was like, "Yeah, like for sure." Didn't tell me where we were going, what we were doing. And it was the most crazy experience. So I literally, again, had no idea where we were going. I think they obviously knew where we were going, but they didn't tell me. And so we're like walking up this mountain, and I'm like talking to God, like, "God, I know I wasn't able to go to church today, but like, I'm thinking about you, Jesus, and I love you so much, and just thank you for everything you've done, and for dying on the cross for us and everything like that." And I'm like talking to God, getting emotional, and I like look up, and I can't even explain this. Like, I promise you, this is exactly how it happened. I looked up, and I just see 3 crosses on top of the hill, like 3 crosses, one in the middle, two on the side, and I'm like, I look at my aunt and uncle, I'm like, "Where are we right now?" Like, and they couldn't really explain it well to me because they don't speak very good English. And I was just in awe. Like, I just broke down. Like, I was just started crying because I was like, "What the heck?" Like, I'm just talking to the Lord, and he just like showed up, and I didn't even know I was hiking on this mountain. And it showed, the steps. There was like stones along the path, and it was like showing, each thing that happened to Jesus and the steps to, how he was going on the cross. And it was just so beautiful. And I got to sit on the top of the hill and talk to him. And I asked him if I could have some alone time. So I kind of just sat there and prayed for a while. And I could just like feel that God was with me. And I was praying and praying, like, "Please make me a better person, to grow me, like use me." And yeah, it was an amazing experience. And I'm not saying obviously every day didn't look like this for me on my trip, but he showed up in not even just the moments that I needed him, but he showed up in moments that I didn't know I needed him. And so it was just so beautiful to witness that. And I've never experienced anything like that. And it being Easter Sunday made it even more powerful. So I wanted to share that story because that was huge for me. And that was a moment that I was feeling very homesick and, very lost and overwhelmed. So it was an amazing night, end of my day that day.
Aw. Yeah. Wow. Like, I remember you texting me about that, or I
Yeah.
remember if you texted me, I sent a video, but it was like, I just remember being like, wow, like, thank you, God, for just like being so cool like that.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it was on Easter.
I
Wow.
know. It was
You know,
crazy.
like
I can't
that
even
stuff
explain
doesn't,
the feeling.
yeah. Like, that stuff doesn't happen by chance. And that's what we need people to understand. Like, God is
Hmm.
not a God of chance. Everything is so intentional, so
Yeah.
intentional. And it's just the absolute beauty of faith. Like, you cannot look at the world, you cannot go through life and think that God isn't there, you know? And think that he's not wanting to be so intentional in your life and wanting to walk with you through everything and just be so in step with you. Like, literally, even the steps that you were walking up, like, those were the steps that represented like him going to the cross. Like, he was literally like like those, do you know what I mean? Like that, like in step with you. Like,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Like, you
I
can't
know.
make that stuff up.
And it's like I was upset because I couldn't go to church that day. And he basically brought church to me. It was like a sermon reading the
Yeah.
stones. Like I'm reading the stones and the steps to, Jesus going to the cross. So it was like I was so upset that I, couldn't go to a service. And he was like, "No, don't worry. Like I have it all planned out. Just wait." And he brings me to this mountaintop that explains everything about Easter. And it's like it was like I didn't yeah, it's just I don't know, I could cry talking about it because it's just like amazing how he listens to us and he meets us in those moments. Like I am across the world, nowhere near my family or friends, and I'm like, upset, and he's just like, "Just wait, like I'm gonna bring you some peace," and like like it's just it's just
Yeah.
insane. He's just the best.
Yeah. Something about meeting God on those mountaintops, hey? Like,
Yeah,
it
literally.
makes me think of Meteora
Yeah.
and like the cross on the top of the Holy Spirit mountain. Like,
Yeah,
just the
so
way that you experience the Lord when you're just in those environments, like,
mhm.
it's unparalleled.
It is. Yeah.
It's incredible. So, how did this experience change how you trust God back at home? not just while traveling? And were you aware of, in those moments while you were on your trip, were you aware of how you might take some of those things back? Or was it more kind of subconscious habits that built up over time? Have you experienced a moment now since being back where you've had to rely on some things that you learned on your trip?
Yeah, that's a good question. So something I did want to share was I felt like God, or I think, I'm trying to learn not to say I feel and to say I think. Anyways, it's just something I'm working on, but I think that God was testing me a lot on my trip. And the reason I say this is because I prayed a lot before my trip, and I prayed like that God would use me, that he would make me bold, that, however, if anyone needed to hear his name, that he would bring me to those people. And I prayed this prayer almost every day. And there were times where I was bold and I was able to, obey his calling, what he was making me feel like doing, and then there were times that I let fear take over. And I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
talk about this because I went through a time where I was very disappointed in myself and almost ashamed. And so I wanted to talk about this. I prayed that prayer and I felt like God was testing me. And so there were moments in Spain, sorry, I'm rambling, but there were moments in Spain
Mm-mm.
where I was walking and, I could see someone walking and I felt on my heart God saying, go up to them, go talk to them, go ask them if they believe in God. Things like that. Like, go up to her and ask her if she's heard about Jesus before. Giving me these like promptings. And so many times I brushed off the thought. Or I'd be like,
Yeah.
there was this one time I was on the beach by myself and there was this guy walking along the beach. He had like these like kind of raggy shorts. He had his shirt off. He had super long hair. He kind of looked like he was a little like lost, like just kind of, didn't know what was going on. And he's like walking back and forth on the beach. And I felt God telling me like, I want you to go up and talk to him, ask him if he's okay. And I was scared. I'm a young girl in Spain on the beach by myself. Like, I just started to let these worldly thoughts take over me. And I said, okay, if he turns around, then I'll ask him. I was like, okay, if he comes back again, then I'll ask it. And then he did come back again. And I didn't go up and ask him because I was like, oh, that was just my thought. Like, that wasn't real. That was just me saying that. Like, I would
Mm.
convince myself that that wasn't what God wanted me to do. And I remember I went home or went back to the place I was staying and I was just so disappointed in myself. All I could think to myself was, Amy, you asked God to give you opportunities. Like, what if that guy really needed to hear about God today and because you were too scared, now he won't? Like, I was so upset at myself. But something I want to point out is even if you get upset at yourself in those situations and you feel like you missed the opportunity to obey God, he's not going to stop testing you and he's not going to stop providing those opportunities for you. And I genuinely believe that because I felt it so many other times down the way. And not all were like, go talk to them or like, be bold and go up to them. But some of them was like, I would think of a thought like, I should be extra kind to this lady today. And I didn't know why. Or sometimes it was like, go and help this lady carry her bag or something like that. It was like those little thoughts that would come up and then you would just kind of do it, right? And I think those are all from God, the kindness, when you want to do these acts of kindness. And
Yeah.
there was this one other story that I wanted to share because it was another time that I let fear take over. And I'm being vulnerable because I honestly, like, I still am dealing with that, like, disappointment in myself because of it. And I think I don't know, God really is teaching me to just like be bold. And I think I'm afraid of failing and like I'm afraid of, like not listening to him when he's telling me to do stuff. And I get like that. And I am hard on myself when I don't do those things. And so I was reminded that like, God's going to keep using you. Like, yeah, you're going to fail multiple times, but like, he's testing your faith and you need to just like pray that you will obey him when he calls you to do
Yeah.
something.
And he wants to
And
strengthen it.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So there was another story that I want to share, and I know I'm sharing a lot of stories, but
That's what this is all about. I want to hear these stories. Don't feel bad.
So I was on a bus in Spain, and I was sitting by myself in the front, and this like lady comes up on the bus, like walking up to find a seat, and she's like singing this song, like this very happy, cheerful song, and she's like, very happy. Like, I don't know how to explain it. She's just like on a high of joy. Like she was like, oh my gosh. And then she's like dancing. Like, and I was like, oh, okay. And then she comes sit beside me. Okay. So she sits beside me on the bus and she's like, hi. She's like dancing and whatever. She's speaking to me Spanish. Okay. And I'm like, oh, like I don't speak Spanish. And she's like, oh, okay, sorry. And then she starts like she's recording this whole time. I just realized she's on her phone recording everything. And then she puts her phone in front of my face because I'm sitting in the window seat. And she's like blocking my view with her arm, recording out the window and telling me, is it okay if I record this? And I was like, yeah. I was like, do you want to just switch seats? Like, I feel like it would be easier if we just switch seats. And so we switched seats and she's like, thank you so much. You are such a kind woman. Thank you so much. I'm just so happy right now. And I was like, oh, of course. And so we switched seats. So she's on the window and I'm on the aisle seat now. And she's like recording out the window all the views. She's like, I'm just so happy. Like, I'm just traveling for the first time alone. And I just love just seeing all of the creation and just everything. Like, she was so happy. And instantly, she reminded me of someone with childlike faith. And she had like this joy on her face. Like, she would see something simple like a skyline or like the way the fields were going on the grass. And she'd be like, look, 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 do you see that? Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Like, she was so excited about everything. And I was like, at first I was like kind of like weirded out. I was like, who is this girl? But
yeah.
yeah.
I feel like I would kind of have that tendency too.
Yeah. And then after I was like, wow, like, is this actually kind of beautiful? Like, she does not care what anyone thinks about her on the bus. She could care less if anyone thinks she's being weird. All she cares about is enjoying looking at the world and creation and the stuff around her. Like, she was just so in her own, presence of enjoying the world. And, she's asking me what a name is. We're like chatting. And again, I felt a prompting that I should bring up Jesus. And we kept talking, so I didn't have that opportunity to bring it up. And then towards the end of the bus ride, I was like, Amy, I just kept saying to myself, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. So I didn't get to be able to talk about Jesus with her, but I said before I'm leaving, she's like, oh, is this your stop? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I just want to say, like, God bless you. And I hope you have an amazing day and an amazing rest of your trip. And I hope that you keep enjoying the trip the way you are, because it's really beautiful to see that. And she like literally started tearing up. She's like, oh my goodness, God bless you. She's like, she was so happy that I said, God bless you. Like, it was almost like she was like, I don't know, needed a reminder about God or something. It was like this weird like interaction where she was just like, that's why you're so nice, is what she said. She's like, wow, like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I got off the bus and I started thinking about that. I was like, wow, like, if I just brought up Jesus earlier on the bus ride, we could have had an amazing conversation about God. But again, I let the fear of the enemy, who knows what it was, take over, and I didn't bring it up till the end. I mean, at least I still said, God bless you, but she was so happy that I said that we could have probably had an amazing conversation. And so I think it also reminded me that, like, we really need to work on just stepping out in faith more. Like, I need to work on stepping out in faith more. And it's crazy because after this day, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw a post, okay? And I don't know if I'm going to explain this good. And I think I sent you this, Zara, but it was a girl walking this way and a guy walking the opposite way, okay? And it showed like text above their heads of what they were thinking. So like the girl was walking past the guy, right?
Oh yeah, you did send me this.
Yeah.
And if like someone was thinking like, oh, maybe I should go talk to God about, or go talk to this guy about God, but he probably doesn't care. And then the guy was kind of like, oh, I wish someone would just like help me.
Yeah. And it's like the things you don't know what they're thinking. And so when you feel these promptings, like, I believe that they are from God. And so that's why I was so upset at myself, and I'm still struggling with it, because I was just like, I asked God, like, I prayed boldly and asked him to give me opportunities, and I failed him multiple times. And so I was very like upset. Like, I was just like, I can't believe I did that. Like, he gave me so many opportunities and I let fear take over so many times. And so that's something I'm really taking home with me, is like, when I feel those feelings, like, just to step out boldly in faith, because what's the worst that's gonna happen? You bring up Jesus to someone, they might get mad, okay, like, whatever, like, you should never be ashamed or scared to bring up Jesus to someone. And I think that's so important to remember, because we say it, but we don't always believe it, and a lot of the time let fear take over. And yeah, I just saw that post and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just feel like I was meant to see that morning because I was like, wow, like I did that so many times this trip. And one of the texts above said, okay, I'll bring up Jesus to this person if they look at me. It was like, reminded me of the beach. I was like, okay, I'll talk to God about him if he turns back. And then the person who was walking across had a text bubble and it said, I'm too shy to look up. So like they would have never looked at them. But because we kept saying like, if they do this, then I'll bring up God,
Yeah.
but like, they're not necessarily going to do that all the time. We just got to do it when you feel that
No.
prompting,
It's like, and even it makes you just think of people like in the Bible around Jesus' time. Like, was Paul like, oh, if these people like invite me over, like, then I'll tell them about Jesus. He was like,
Yeah.
it's the persecution, like, like I was even reading this in Romans 8, like, you endure in the same sufferings as Jesus, that like you share in his
Mhm.
sufferings, you can share in his glory, it's like, even just rejection is like a little bit of the suffering part in that way too. And if God
Yeah.
puts it on your heart to talk to someone, you're exactly right. Maybe they're not going to receive it well. Maybe they will. But
Mhm.
regardless, either you're going to grow or they're going to grow or you're both going to grow. So,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm telling this to myself very often too, where I often have those moments and those experiences where I wish I would have
Mhm.
like talked to someone and I don't because of fear. And
Mhm.
it's a tough thing too. Or,
It is, yeah.
I'll mention it, but I wish I would have prayed for them or whatever the case may be, right? It's a tough thing, but that's really cool that you
It
have those
is.
experiences and those moments where now you can look at that and be like, okay, I don't want to feel that way again.
Yeah, I don't wanna make that same mistake again, and that's
Yeah.
the importance. But I think, like, and Zara, like, this is mainly me just, like, I honestly still feel that, like, I think I'm learning about what fear of the Lord means. So for the longest time, I didn't know what it meant to fear the Lord. And, you see these quotes in the Bible all the time, like, or verses, sorry, that are like, a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised, right? And I was like, okay, like, what does it mean for me to fear the Lord? Like, what does that mean? And I'm still learning,
Hmm.
but I feel like a part of it is like, we know God's our father. And we have to look at him like a father. And it's like in the like in a worldly perspective, like our dad on earth, when if you were to do something wrong when you were younger, you were kind of fearful of like, oh, what's my dad gonna say? Like, what is he gonna do? Like, I don't want to disappoint my dad. And you think
Yeah.
of it like that way, like, I feel like in a way that's what fear of the Lord means. Like, he is so powerful and he is like so much more powerful than we'll ever be. And so that's another way to look at it. Like, you fear of like how powerful he is and what he can do. And like, yeah, he's a loving and amazing father to us. But it's almost like when I was in Europe, I felt like he was testing me, okay, by trying to make me more bold in faith because I asked him to. And when I failed him multiple times, I was like afraid. I was like, wow, like I was afraid that he would be disappointed in me. And I know that he's not, and I know that he loves us, but it's like that fear of like, okay, he's my father. So I want him to think highly of me. Like, he's the one that judges me. His approval is the only thing that matters. So it's like when I'm failing what he's calling me to do, I'm scared. I get upset about it. If I was failing you, I don't think my fear would be the same as how I am with the Lord, you know?
Yeah. And I even like wouldn't even say failing. I would just say like falling short.
Yeah.
Because we're always falling short of the glory of God. And yeah, like that's very cool that, God revealed what that means a little bit more to you. When I always
Mhm.
think of fear of the Lord, I think of reverence, which is like
Yeah.
a deep, profound respect for the Lord that you're like falling down in praise, falling down in worship and
Yeah,
fear of
that's
the Lord, right? You respect your dad,
Mhm.
hopefully. So
Yeah.
you want to obey him. And if you don't respect your dad, well, you don't obey him. And what does that kind of look like? Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Same thing with God, right?
Yeah. And you think of it like, I don't want to sin and I don't want to do something wrong because I don't want to disappoint God. I don't want him to judge me and to be like upset about my decision that I made. So like that is what I see about also fear of the Lord. Like
Yeah.
I yeah, we're going to sin and we're going to fall short and he knows that. So that's why he's forgiving and he's loving. But like
Yeah.
trying not to sin and trying not to fall short is like, what we're supposed to do. We want to grow closer to him. So I think, yeah, like I'm not saying he wants us to be scared of him, but I think I'm learning what it means to be like, yeah, just, like you said, respect him so much to not
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah. And God is like, he doesn't think about things the same way that we think about them. Like his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways. So he doesn't see it as like, oh, Amy, like not again. Like I'm
No,
so
I know.
disappointed in you. But I know what you're saying. But if you're listening and you're, wondering if God thinks about it that way, like of course he wants the best for us. He wants you to follow him. He doesn't want you to disobey him. Of course, he doesn't want that. But he's such a loving God, and his ways are always higher. His thoughts are always higher. And he doesn't see you on like this, downward trajectory. He sees everything in full in ways that we can't even comprehend.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful
that's
part
a good
about
way
it.
to say that.
So last question here. What would you say to someone who is maybe in a little bit of a similar situation that you were before, who feels called to step out, but is kind of scared of the unknown?
Yeah. Honestly, I'd say do it scared. And I know that's easier said than done, but I feel like we need to understand that fear doesn't mean you're not called. So like,
ooh, that's a good one.
That's something I'm really trying to work on, planting that in the root of my heart, because in fact, it often means that you are. Like, I felt it so many times that like, that lump in my throat, the overthinking, the what if I mess up kind of fear. But honestly, I've bailed on things before and I've said no to moments I should have said yes to. But I've learned that you don't need to feel brave to be obedient. You just need to be willing. And the reason I've learned this is because God gave me bravery when I was on my trip. Like I was doing things, and even like things that people were like, "Oh my gosh, Amy, you're so brave." Like I probably heard that 1,000 times on my trip from people. Like, "You're so brave, you're so brave." And I was like, "Wow, like that is just so kind of you to say that." But I didn't know, like, I didn't feel brave, I didn't feel it, but it was like, wow. And then I thought about it when I came home and I was like, wow, like I actually was so brave, but that was God. Like I am not a brave person just on my own. Like God gave me so much bravery and he made me so fearless on my trip in ways that I can't even explain. And so I feel like that's something to point out, that like, even if your yes is quite like, is like quiet and you feel unsure, like God still honors it, and he's not asking for perfection. He's just asking for you to trust him. So like before my trip, I was nervous and scared, but I trusted him and he literally just made me fearless. Like, and that's something that helped me a lot, is like, I've been trying not to say the saying like take it day by day anymore. I now say take it moment by moment. And I know that maybe not doesn't sound like a big difference, but I try to picture it of like, handle this moment right now that you're in. Like my whole trip, I was like, okay, Amy, moment by moment. Like I'm scared I'm like upset right now, or I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, but like, let's pray, let's handle this moment, and then we'll move on to the next step and God will show up. Like let tomorrow take care of itself. Like Jesus even said in Matthew 6, don't worry about tomorrow. And so if you feel called to something new, but fear is like screaming at you, try your best to walk anyway. And I struggle with this. Like I said, I've had so many opportunities that I missed because of fear. But like, just whisper yes anyways, or shout yes anyway, whatever it is that you want to do, but let God walk with you. Like even if you're, it's one shaky step at a time, or it's like, one moment at a time, you'll be surprised how present he is in each moment you choose to courage over comfort. Like, I many times had to choose courage over comfort, and he was there every single time. And yeah, I just want to say this too, that I'm not trying to sound like I have it all figured out. I still struggle with this every single day. And, Zara knows this because I talk to her about life decisions every single day, and I'm always struggling with it. But, with almost every decision, it's honestly like, you just need to remember not to let fear take over and let the enemy take over, because one of the biggest ways the enemy attacks me is through fear, doubt, and overthinking. And so I'm still learning that, and I'm still someone who's saying I'm not perfect. And, I'm just learning to choose faith when I feel fear. And that's something I'm still learning and that I had to do on my trip. And so I don't want to be a hypocrite. So that's why I'm saying this right now. But like, I'm right with you and I'm still learning all this stuff. So yeah, that's what I would say is like, just try to do it, you know, just do it scared.
Yeah. That's absolutely like no notes, nothing to add. That was a beautiful way of explaining it. And, hey, if you're listening and this kind of sounds like you, something like you want to do, I have something that you want to do, DM us. Tell us your stories. If
Yeah.
you are struggling with talking to someone about Jesus, talking to a stranger, and you end up doing it, tell us. Or if you don't, tell us
Yeah.
still, so we can
Mhm.
pray with you and we can share our stories. I think that's really awesome and beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing, Amy. That's very
Yeah.
full of
Thanks for
wisdom.
asking me those questions. I really appreciated sharing that.
One thing I will just read here is Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 to 9. And it says, "After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, 'Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go.'" I don't think it could
Wow.
possibly say be strong and courageous any more times than that. And I think that's a
Wow. That
beautiful
verse is perfect. The
conclusion.
ending of the verse is exactly what I'm trying to tell people right now. Wow. Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening to a bit of my, I guess, Europe travel testimony. 'Cause,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really enjoyed sharing that. And thanks for doing this episode with me, Zara.
Yes, of course. See you guys next month.
Bye.
Bye.